For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services. Over at youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral this week, I got a comment reading I'm7. I'm 7. Lowercase, all lowercase letters. I am, no apostrophe, 7. So, I don't know if that user is actually 7. If they are, I feel like, well, I don't need to touch that. I don't need to be interacting with some 7-year-old. His parents probably don't know that he's on there. If it's someone trolling and goofing around and stuff, then that's not going to go anywhere I'm interested in going, interacting with someone that wants to do that. And this was also an interesting week. You know, I usually look for like highlights from all the different ways that you guys can get in touch with me to share samples of that here. And I just happened to notice, it's not the first week that I've seen this, I just happened to notice this week that there was a slightly higher number than usual of like comments on various YouTube videos that I put out there that I just did not want to respond to. And so I thought I would take a moment to, as I've thought about from time to time, I've actually thought of making this a video on YouTube, because that's probably where it needs to be, you know, for the right people to see it. But we'll just, for the rest of you guys, you faithful podcast listeners, because I do think there's some, while there's some overlap, there's also some significant difference in the audiences, I would suspect. So I'll give you guys the little behind the scenes skinny. In fact, normally this would be a journal entry. This kind of thing would be a journal entry for my supporters over at patreon.com/spiritblade productions. So this can serve as a sample for some of the kinds of month-to-month content in that Pater's Brain podcast that I put out for patrons. Anyway, so what are some reasons that I won't respond? I really try to respond and connect with anybody who wants to connect with me. You know, if you reach out to me, especially email, I'm gonna get back to you. And if I don't, then something's gone horribly awry. And most any other way, I'm gonna be getting back to you. It's pretty unusual for me to not reply to a message from somebody. I mean, sometimes if it's like you say something and then I reply, and then you reply to my reply, then I won't always reply to that, you know, that follow-up reply of yours, you know. But at least the first time you initiate some kind of like a topic with me, I'm almost always going to reply. That's just something that I want to do. And I will for as long as I possibly can. It's one reason that it's an upside of not being hugely big on the internet, is that I can, really engage with you guys more. And so I hope, of course, I'd love for Christian Geek Central to grow and grow and grow, but if that happens, I'd hope to still be able to interact with all of you guys, anybody that wants to interact with me. So what would be some reasons that I would not respond to a comment? It's pretty rare. Usually, almost always, I'm at least going to say thanks. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Even if I feel like there's nothing fruitful to be gained from interacting with somebody about something that they've said, because of a strong position they're taking, or I just don't feel like they're really open and interested in like a back and forth open exchange of ideas, then I'll usually at least say, hey, thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts, and that's what I did with someone today, or this week, I should say. But anyway, the reasons I won't respond, in case you're curious, are that I have nothing to say, and sometimes I just feel like, yeah, that doesn't. I have no problem with the comment. I could even agree with the comment, or I feel indifferent. Maybe they're commenting on something that like I don't know anything about, or they're directing their comment to another user, like. Hey, anybody know this, da 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 da, and sometimes I'll respond to those, sometimes I won't. If it's not directed at me, I won't necessarily feel like I have anything to say. So sometimes it's just a matter of, yeah, I don't feel like I have anything interesting or helpful to add in a response. So that would be one reason. Another reason would be the poster communicates in prohibitively broken English. And that could be for a number of reasons. It could be because they're not a native English speaker and writer. It could be because of mental conditions they have that I don't know about. I mean, I have no idea to know what's going on there. But if something is in, I use the word prohibitively because broken English, hey, I'm totally wanting to give grace and just try to meet people where they're at, absolutely, But if it's prohibitively broken to the point where it's like, I'm not even sure what they're getting at, I'm not even sure what point they're making, then it would just be like I used to try and engage with people that would write that kind of stuff, and I'd be like, I don't think I would try to reply some way, but there was just such a communication breakdown that I was like, this is not going anywhere. I feel like we're not even understanding each other. Literally not understanding the structure of each other's sentences. So that could be a reason. Another reason would be the poster is vehemently judgmental, or condemning of me. That just says to me that they have really made up their mind about something, and they are not interested in hearing another perspective, even hearing another perspective, let alone considering. Maybe they want to get into it and they got their dukes up. If I just feel like somebody's just going, just passionately venting at me, and saying, well, you're a sinner and what you're doing is sin and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, sometimes I will, but more and more, especially in recent years, I just made the decision that I've just gotten better at figuring out what actually is going to be a productive exchange and what isn't. Matthew 7, verse 6 and Matthew 10, verse 14 have been key verses for me that I've had on my wall starting around 2 years ago, I think it was. Keep your pearls and shake off the dust. Jesus essentially said, don't be wasting your time on people that just are not going to be at all receptive to what you're going to be sharing. They're not even remotely open, can't even appreciate the words that are coming out of your mouth, and they can't even understand the words that are coming out of your mouth because they're so far in another place, or if they don't, welcome you and engage with you, then just shake the dust off and move on to another town, I mean, and leave it to them and God to sort through where they're at, So a lot of times I'll, if they're, it's not like because, my feelings are hurt because they're judgmental and condemning of me, I still have to sort through that. That can sometimes sting less and less over the years because more and more as years have passed in doing the work that I'm doing, I see those kinds of things as symptomatic that like, wow, there's something going on with them spiritually and maybe emotionally and who knows what else. And so that really shifts really quickly. I might initially go like, ooh, or sometimes just like, whoa, wow, and just immediately go to a place of what's going on with them, that they're doing this, So it's more about, okay, if they're really going to be like that, then I can't see anything productive coming from anything that I might say in response, And then another reason I would just remain silent and not say anything is that a poster seems to be, and this is really subjective, trying to figure this out, seems to be trolling, or is just otherwise unopen to reason. Like if someone says something that to me and people, oops, dang it, the crap. Oh, I thought I would be done recording by this point. What am I supposed to have the boys do now? Okay, they're allowed to have room time with screens now, but they're going to be chomping at the bit to do that. They know. They're going to be watching for 2:30 to come. The time has arrived. The time foretold. All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if someone says something that like to me and anyone who's been engaging with my content for even like a few months or like as long as a year would look at and just say, this is just totally outrageous what they're saying, like it's obvious that they've not watched any of my previous content or listened to any of my previous content. And their statement is so obviously wrong, then I'll think to myself, are they just kind of like trolling? Are they putting on a persona right now because they just want to be, they want to see if they can get me flustered by interacting with somebody who's just totally not open to reason? It's I don't know. I mean, I do wonder sometimes. Everybody's in all kinds of different places, and like I said, you never know if someone is kind of in an emotionally wounded space, or they have some mental conditions, some mental health issues that there's no way that we could know about and stuff. And part of the reason, by the way, I'm choosing to share all this with you guys is so hopefully it's useful to you as you're deciding how you want to interact with people online and who you want to choose to interact with and stuff. So, but anyway, yeah, I'll I'll very often, briefly pray for these people, even though I don't respond to them, that God would just meet them where they're at. But I've just come to conclude from years and years of trying to interact with people that fit one of these categories that it's just not. It's almost never productive, or at least at some point during the conversation, it ceases being productive. And I've gotten better at determining when that point is, if it's right away with their first comment, or if it's somewhere midway through the conversation that I figured, okay, I don't think this is gonna go advance anywhere. That's gonna be furtherly fruitful. So yeah, if they seem like they might be trolling, or they're just otherwise seem completely unopen to reason, then I'll just give them the silent treatment, I guess. And then lastly, if they seem to be trolling, or are unopen to reason, or are vehemently judgmental toward others. So if I see them treating either another poster specifically, or just calling out like a people group or something, then I will usually not respond. So if you get like the odd, clearly anti-religious person who just comes on, like there was one post a while back on some video I posted, that all they posted was God doesn't exist, and I just didn't respond to that because it wasn't really relevant to the specific video, apart from the fact that, it's a Christian channel. I'm producing, Christian-oriented content, but I was just like, yeah, what do I say to that? To say like, well, actually, I think he is. Okay. So that wasn't an invitation to any kind of ongoing conversation. That's just a sentence that strikes me as they're just wanting to vent. They're just wanting to say something. Like, okay, well, in most cases, I'll let you do that. But there do come times where, for the sake of the atmosphere that I want to create on Christian Geek Central and the various platforms that Christian Geek Central exists on, that I will choose to just ban people. That's pretty rare. But now and then, something can get you insta-banned. But I always include a message either right there under the comment that they made after I've banned them, or in a private message that I'll send to them on the platform that they made the comment on. Just a note to a reconciliation note of some kind, like, hey, here's why I banned you. If I misunderstood your intent or misunderstood, what you were wanting to do there, please let me know. I would love to get you, I would love to have a good conversation with you. So, I mean, even after banning them, I send them a message that tries to communicate that I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And anytime they want to, get back in touch, they can let me know and I'll lift the ban, So, so anyway, yeah, and every time I give careful thought and sometimes break my own rules. These rules for me aren't hard and fast because it's as my senior pastor when I was working on staff as a worship pastor at our church, as he once said to me as I was wrestling with some decisions to make, he said, it's much easier to make policy, and it's a lot harder, but often the right path to deal with issues on a case-by-case basis and deal with people on a case-by-case basis, and that is certainly true. And so I really try to allow room with every single decision I make of who I'm going to respond to and who I'm not going to respond to, and break my rules, extend a hand. I want to err on the side of love and grace. But, I also know at the same time that my work in ministry in the last 2 years, since I've kind of made some decisions, some specific decisions about who I'm going to interact with, I know that my productivity has increased since I've committed myself to not wasting time on interactions that just show no hope of being an open exchange of ideas. So yeah, to anybody that this might be relevant to, if you ever want to challenge my ideas, I am genuinely open to that. Sure, it's uncomfortable, but I am genuinely open to that. But if you want me to have an exchange with you about whatever that thing is, I want to say be wise, be humble and winsome if you want to be heard and considered. And of course, I'm talking about by me. This is true of me. But this is just good for anyone, that you hope to persuade. So be wise, humble, winsome if you want to be heard and considered. A lot of people seem content to just be heard, but they don't care, evidently, that their words be considered or have weight. And I think that's a different matter. We need to demonstrate that we ourselves will also endeavor to be open to persuasion, even as we're putting out there an idea that's in opposition or contrast to what someone else has expressed, So these are just things that are good for anyone that you hope to persuade to another view. These are just good tips to apply to your interaction. So I'm choosing to make Christian Geek Central a place where we are all expected to exercise and develop those skills together as geeks, because they are skills that have to be developed, and especially since geeks are not known for, our social skills, then I'm okay with Christian Geek Central being a petri dish where we can kind of experiment and learn and grow together in figuring out, okay, how do we do this thing that Earthlings call sensitive and wise communication? So anyway, if you ever passionately unloaded about something in my YouTube comments or elsewhere and are met with silence from me, especially if it was directed at me, I'm not going to respond to everything like that, say, on the forums, because that's not necessarily directed at me, but elsewhere where it would be, directed at me. If you're met with silence from me after really kind of unloading passionately about something, this right here is my invitation and encouragement for you to, hey, try again. I would love to have a thoughtful exchange with anybody else who wants that too. Let's see here. That was long-winded. Over at the forums at christiangeekcentral.com. The Christian Geek Central podcast is the longest-running podcast for Christian geeks with over 600 weekly episodes and counting, featuring audio versions of much of the same content you'll find here, plus exclusive content including weekly news updates from the creators of Christian comics, novels, and video games, debriefing and commentary about what I've been playing, reading, and watching, and my expanded responses to your comments and questions via YouTube, email, or the Christian Geek Central forums. And now, with timestamps, so you can jump straight to the segments you want to hear most. Get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services, and enjoy one more way you can geek out and seek the truth.